Here is what keeps me awake. What happens when love becomes a hostage situation? Not metaphorically, not theoretically. Actually, when intimacy transforms into a knife held to your throat, when I love you sound less like devotion and more like I own you. When the person who knows you best uses that knowledge as ammunition. What is that? What do we call the force that turns vulnerability into a weapon, that transforms the marriage bed into a crime scene? Astrology has a name for it. It's called Venus square Pluto. And if you want to see it in its purest, most terrifying form, if you want to watch this archetype walk, talk, and destroy everything in its path, you need to meet Amy Dunne. Let me tell you what Venus square Pluto actually feels like from the inside. Venus is beauty, harmony, the soft parts of us that reach toward connection, that want to be held, to be chosen, to matter to someone else. Venus asks the simplest, most devastating question in the human experience. Will you love me? Pluto doesn't ask questions. Pluto demands answers. Pluto is the god of the underworld, the part of us that knows everyone dies, that understands power is the only currency that matters when love runs out, that will burn the whole house down rather than be abandoned in it. Pluto doesn't want your love. Pluto wants your soul, your secrets, your shadow, the parts of you that you don't even show yourself in the mirror at 2 a.m. And when these two forces form a square, a 90-degree angle of pure psychological friction, you get a very specific type of person. Someone who will say to you with absolute sincerity, I need you to see me, all of me, the beauty and the monster. And if you flinch, if you look away, if you love only the pretty parts, I will make you regret that you were ever born. This is not a villain. This is someone in pain. The pain of being loved for a lie. The agony of performing desirability while your real self starves in the basement. The slow burning rage of realizing that the person who promised to love you forever only loves the idea of you. And the moment you stopped being that idea, they started looking for the exit. Venus square Pluto doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be known. And when being known becomes impossible, destruction starts looking like the next best thing. Enter Amy Dunne, the woman who refused to disappear quietly. If you haven't seen Gone Girl, here is what you need to know. Amy Dunne is perfect. Not figuratively, architecturally perfect. She's beautiful, brilliant, wealthy, the inspiration for a beloved children's book series called Amazing Amy. She is the woman who every man wants and every woman wants to be. And she's so fucking tired of being that woman. Because here's the thing about being perfect, people don't love you, they love the performance, they love the idea. And the moment you stop performing, the moment you get angry or tired or real, they are gone. Amy's husband Nick stops performing too. He cheats, he lies, he costs on her family money while resenting her for having it. He treats their marriage like a comfortable chair he is bored of sitting in. So Amy does what Venus square Pluto does when betrayal confirms it was fair. She stages her own murder, frames Nick for it, and disappears. And this isn't just revenge, this is ritual. Listen to how she describes creating the cool girl persona for Nick, the version of herself she thought he wanted. Men always say that as a defining compliment, don't they? She's a cool girl. Being the cool girl means I am a hot, brilliant, funny woman who adores football, poker, dirty jokes, and burping. Cool girl never gets angry. They only smile in a chagrined, loving manner and let their men do whatever they want. Go ahead, shit on me. I don't mind. I am the cool girl. Paraphrased. This, this right here is Venus divorced from Pluto. This is beauty without depth, charm without sovereignty, the self as performance for someone else's pleasure. And underneath, Pluto is screaming. Here is where Amy's story gets truly mythological. When she stages her disappearance, she is not just punishing Nick, she's killing the cool girl. Actually, ritualistically murdering the false self that Nick loved, leaving her corpse behind in the form of a crime scene. Diary entries, credit card statements, all the evidence of a woman who never really existed. And in that death, Amy is reborn, not as the women men wants, as the woman who cannot be controlled. She becomes Pluto incarnate, manipulative, omnipotent, terrifying. She doesn't seduce anymore. She commands. She doesn't ask to be loved. She forces you to see her whether you want to or not. And here's the most chilling part. She wins. By the end of the film, Nick is trapped. She is pregnant with his child, conceived through stored sperm without his consent, the ultimate violation of bodily autonomy. He can't leave. He can't expose her. He can barely speak without her permission. She has transformed abandonment into captivity. She has turned I don't love you anymore into I will never escape you. This is the shadow Venus Pluto fantasy realized. If I can't have your love, I will have your life. Amy Dunne is not a sociopath, or rather, she is, but that's not the point. The point is that underneath all that calculated violence, underneath the fake diary entries and the staged crime scene and the murdered ex boyfriend, there's a woman who just wanted to be seen. Not performed for, not projected onto, not loved for the mask, seen. And when that didn't happen, when Nick's love proved conditional, when he demonstrated that he only wanted the cool girl version of her, she made a choice. A terrible, tragic, utterly human choice. If you won't see me as I am, I'll make you see me as I choose to be. This is what Venus square Pluto does in its shadow form. It confuses intimacy with control. It believes that if love won't come willingly, you can force it into being through power. And here is the truth that Amy never learns. You cannot coerce someone into loving your darkness. You can make them fear it. You can make them submit to it, but you cannot make them hold it. Real intimacy, the kind Venus square Pluto craves at its core, requires something Amy cannot give: vulnerability without manipulation, truth without violence, the courage to say, "Here is me in all my darkness," and then wait, not knowing if the other person will stay. Now, here is where this gets really interesting. Gillian Flynn, the author who created Amy Dunne, also has Venus Pluto in her birth chart. But hers is a trine, or I think a sextile, not a square. This is important. Stay with me here. Let's say she has a trine, which is a harmonious aspect. It has the same intensity, the same fascination with power and desire, the same understanding of how love and death dance together. But it doesn't have the compulsion. It doesn't live the crisis, it witnesses it. Flynn understands Amy from the inside. She knows the rage beneath compliance, the violence underneath performed femininity, the annihilative fantasy of total control. She knows it intimately, but she doesn't enact it. Instead, she does something even more powerful. She writes it. She takes the raw psychological material of Venus Pluto and transforms it into art. This is the difference between being claimed by an archetype and claiming creative authority over it. Flame becomes the alchemist. She takes the shadow, the dark, dangerous, destructive energy, and she sublimates it. She makes it into story, into warning, into mirror. And in doing so, she offers something Amy never could: catharsis. She lets us experience the Venus Pluto ridge vicariously so we don't have to act it out in our actual lives. She lets us see the monster, understand its logic, even sympathize with its pain without becoming it. This is what art does at its best. It contains the uncontainable. It holds the shadow so we can look at it without being destroyed by it. Here's why Gone Girl became a cultural phenomenon. Why it sparked think pieces and hot takes and dinner party argument for years. Because we all have a little Amy in us. Maybe you have never stitched your own mother, I hope, but have you ever performed the version of yourself you thought someone wanted who needs to resent them for accepting it? Have you ever felt invisible in a relationship, loved for what you do rather than who you are? Have you ever wanted to scream at someone? You don't actually know me at all, do you? Have you ever had intrusive thoughts, just for a second, of burning it all down just to prove you could? That is Venus square Pluto. And in a culture built on performance, Instagram feeds, dating app profiles, personal brands, curated authenticity, we are all living some version of this tension. We all construct masks. We all hide our shadows. We all wonder, if they saw the real me, would they stay? Amy just asked that question with a knife in her hand. And that's what makes her terrifying. Not because she's alien, but because she's she's recognizable. She's the voice in the back of your head when your partner doesn't text back. Hmm. The rage you swallow when someone takes you for granted. The fantasy, brief, shameful, visceral, of making them hurt the way they hurt you. Amy is the part of us that refuses to suffer quietly. The part that says, if you betray me, there will be consequences. The part that would rather be feared than forgotten. There's an ancient Greek myth about this. Of course, there is. Persephone, daughter of Demeter, maiden of spring and flowers, Venus incarnate, is abducted by Hades, god of the underworld, or shall we call him Pluto. In the sanitized version, she is a victim, kidnapped, assaulted, forced into marriage. But in the older versions, the ones that remember, she's not just a victim, she's an initiate. She descends, she eats the pomegranate seeds, she becomes queen of the underworld by choice. She learns that there is power in darkness, that sovereignty requires descent, that you cannot rule both the upper world and the lower world unless you have been to both. This is the Venus Pluto journey in its integrated form. Not conquest, not destruction, initiation. The willingness to descend into your own underworld, into jealousy, rage, possessiveness, the annihilative impulse, and return transformed. To learn you can survive your own darkness, that intimacy does not require perfection, that you can be loved not despite your shadow, but along with your shadow. Amy never makes this journey. She descends, yes, but she never comes back. She stays in the underworld, ruling it alone, queen of her own isolated kingdom of control. She wins the power, but she loses the intimacy she wanted. So here's what I want to leave us with. When you feel the Venus Pluto pull, that urge to test love by breaking it, to demand total transparency through interrogation, to control because you're terrified of being abandoned, you have a choice. You can be Amy. You can say, see my darkness or I will destroy you. Or you can make a different offer. Here is me in all my darkness. I won't weaponize it. I won't use it to manipulate you. I'm just, showing it to you. And I understand if that's too much. I understand if you need to leave. But I am asking without demanding, without threatening, without a knife behind my back. Will you stay? That's vulnerable. And because it is vulnerable, it is damn right terrifying. Because you might say it and they might leave anyway. And here is what Amy never understood. Love earned through fear isn't love. It is captivity. And captivity, no matter how perfectly controlled, is still a prison. For both of you, the integrated Venus Pluto does not need to hold you hostage. It is powerful enough to risk letting you go. It is willing to be seen and wait for the answer. That is the difference between power and violence, between intimacy and possession, between a love that transforms you and a love that destroys you. So, here is me in all my darkness, not as threat, not as ultimatum, not with conditions attached, as an invitation into depths, into truth, into the terrifying, exhilarating possibility that maybe, just maybe, someone can hold all of you and not flinch. That's what Venus square Pluto is trying to teach us. Underneath all the obsession and control and rage, that real love does not demand perfection. It demands courage. The courage to descend into your own underworld and bring someone with you. The courage to say, "This is my shadow," without weaponizing it. The courage to love without guarantees. Hamidon never learned that. She chose power over vulnerability, control over trust, captivity over the risk of rejection. But Gillian Flynn, by writing her story, offers us a chance to make a different choice, to witness the shadow without becoming it, to understand the rage without enacting it, to transform obsession into intimacy, destruction into creation, the demand to be seen into the offering of authentic presence. The archetype doesn't care which path you choose, but your soul does.